How can we make programming accessible and engaging for the next generation, regardless of their background, the country they live, or the native language that they speak? Well, today I want to explore this very question with my guest today. Her name is Felienne Hermans. She's the visionary behind a company called Hedy, which is essentially a platform that is transforming how kids learn to code. And with over 500,000 users, Hedy is breaking new ground by offering a free and open source programming environment that is tailored to children as young as 10. And it's not just a tool though, with translations in over 60 languages, all powered by a dedicated community of volunteers. But my guest isn't just a creator, she's a professor of computer science education and also a high school teacher. And her work is fueled by a passion for making programming education more inclusive, more effective and more fun. And after dedicating over a decade to finding better ways to introduce young learners to the world of coding in a way that makes it an experience that resonates both culturally as it does linguistically, she's incredibly inspiring. So today I've invited her to join me on the podcast, share some of her insights on why we must radically change how we teach programming, the role that natural languages play in shaping the future of coding, and also offer some practical advice to parents out there that are hopefully going to be listening today that are eager to guide their children into this essential skill set. So what does the future of programming and education look like, and how can we prepare our children for it? This is where I'm going to invite you to join me and my guest today in sunny Amsterdam, where we're going to talk about all this and much more. Are you or your business thinking of launching a podcast in 2025? Well, dreams are about to become a reality because I have 3 amazing options that will guarantee that you can make that happen. Option 1, you record and I handle the rest. All you need is 30 minutes to go and record an episode. I'll take care of editing, setting up the RSS feed and publishing it across all major podcasting platforms. For just $2,000, you can work alongside me. I'll have you up and running with a season of 12 polished episodes ready to go live. So if you or your business are interested in getting a podcast live and you want to work directly with me, visit my website, techblogwriter.co.uk, email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com, send me a DM on any social platform such as LinkedIn, X or Instagram. I'm just at Neil C. Hughes on every single platform. Option 2, if you're looking for extended end-to-end support, well, I've partnered with AIpodcast.ing. They provide everything from website management to promotional material and help improving engagement. And you can also get 25% off your first month with the code Neil C. Hughes and let them handle all the heavy lifting for you. But option 3, if you want to do it all yourself, Libsyn, the podcast host that I use for this show, they are offering up to 2 months of free hosting when you use the promo code TBW. For example, if you were to sign up on November the 1st, you can start 2025 strong and without paying anything till January the 1st, 2025. Whichever path you choose, I'm here to make sure that you start the new year with a podcast ready to take the world by storm. Let's do it together. But enough from me. Let me beam your ears all the way to Amsterdam to start this conversation now. So a massive warm welcome to the show. Can you tell everyone listening a little about who you are and what you do?
Yes, absolutely. My name is Felienne Hermans. I'm a professor of computer science education at VU Amsterdam, which is a university in Amsterdam. And in addition to being a university professor, I'm also a middle school teacher, I should say. So I teach 7th grade, which in my country is high school, but I think where many people are, this is considered middle school. So 1 day a week, I teach actual students, middle schoolers, programming. Everything I do is related to programming education.
And you've missed something out there because you do all of that, but you've also created a platform that has evolved since its inception to reach 500,000 monthly users, which is a huge achievement. Can you tell me a little bit more about that and what inspired you to create this?
Yeah, absolutely. So for me, that's very related to teaching these middle schoolers. So I've been teaching grade 7 for a very long time, this age group for over 10 years. And I started to teach them Python. And Python is a professional programming language, of course. Isn't really meant for 12-year-olds. And I really saw them struggle with this, right? It's really too hard. The error messages are very complex. Everything is in English, which isn't my first language. And it's not the first language of the kids either. So they were struggling. And I thought, well, I'm not just a teacher. I am actually a programmer. I have a PhD in software engineering. So let me create something that is simpler, like a baby Python for them, where error messages are in Dutch, where you can translate everything. And not just the translation was important, but also this step-by-step learning, where you don't have to learn all concepts at once. First, we do a simple version of print, like you just do print and then not quotes and not brackets, just a simple version. And then we expand this step by step. So my goal really was, over a Christmas break 5 years ago, to build a small website for only my own students. And as you pointed out, this has gotten a little bit out of hand. We now support, I think, 63 different languages, and we have hundreds of thousands of users around the world. Yeah, oops. My pet project escaped the lab.
Wow, you've created a monster there. And I love the whole story behind it and how it's evolved to over 60 languages, you've said there.
Yes.
But ultimately, it's all about transforming the way we teach programming to kids. And I think that is just inspirational on its own. So can you dig a little bit deeper? Tell me how you address the challenges of traditional programming in programming education. That I'm sure you've come across those challenges firsthand, and how you're overcoming that, because it really is inspiring.
Absolutely. So I think there's really a lot of challenges in introductory programming, and a lot of introductory programming comes from the university. And I think one of the assumptions that we've had for a long time is that sort of what works for university students will also work for kids that are younger. And of course, not all of that is true. And a lot of the assumptions, let's take one assumption, for example.
Yeah.
I think one assumption that we have in university level students is they want to learn programming, right? Because they subscribe to a computer science or a related field. So they have an interest in programming. I don't think that is even necessarily true for all computer science students now, but this is still the way professors think. And something that flows from that is that, well, it doesn't really matter what we program, right? Because there's an intrinsic motivation in programming. So we can do exercises that I'm sure many people have seen, like print all prime numbers, right? Or reverse this string, or search the longest alphabetical substring in this text file, which is a bit boring, right? It's fun if you want to learn programming. But if you are not sure if you want to learn programming, or if you're not really sure what programming is for, then these types of exercises don't really convey why programming is fun. Like, who cares about printing prime numbers? And who cares about reversing a string? That is not helping. So I think one of the things that we are doing with the platform is, from the Hedy platform, is from the beginning trying to have exercises where we explain why programming is useful and why programming is fun. So we have one of our exercises is a little interactive story where you ask, what is your name? And then you can say Hank or Neil or Felienne. And then everywhere in the story, this name gets replaced. And then that means you can make the same story about your mom or your dad or your neighbor. You see, look, it is fun to make a story that has some interactivity. And later, of course, this interactivity is changed into, hey, do you want to have a story with a good or a bad ending? And this is how we introduce an if statement. Whereas sometimes in traditional programming exercises, I've seen exercises that are like requiring of a student to program something that is x is 2. If x is odd, then, like, why are we doing this? I mean, if I'm setting this fixed value, this doesn't really help me understand what an if statement is for. So we try to integrate this into exercises that show what programming can be and why certain programming concepts like a loop or an if statement, why they make sense. And then you see that for some students, it's just like, yes, of course, I want to have a story with a good or a bad ending, or I want to have different types of main characters in my story. So then it starts to make more sense.
And as you said a few moments ago, translated into more than 60 languages, including Chinese, Arabic, and Spanish. And I'm curious, how do natural languages and cultural differences influence the way that children learn programming? Anything you've noticed here?
Yeah, this is a great question. So there was already some research, not even mine, but research that was done way before me in a visual programming language called Scratch, where the researchers showed that if kids program in their own native language, they learn more concepts and they learn them faster, which is like, on the one hand side, because of course it is, right? Of course it's easier for you English native speakers. Maybe it's very hard to appreciate, but me, a non-English speaker, I really appreciate that stuff, even though my English is quite good. Even still, in Dutch, everything is easier. So of course it is easier in your own language. So, but on the other hand, most programming languages are in English, right? Even educational languages are very often in English if they're textual. So there's also this assumption that, it is just a few words, just maybe 30 keywords. How hard can it be to just learn the language? But we have seen also in our research that there are big differences. Not just in learning, as these other researchers have already found. We can put the paper in the show notes as well. But also in terms of like cultural feeling at homeness, right? I don't have a better word for it, but this feeling that, hey, programming isn't just the world of English. I can also program in my own language. And we're seeing an interesting uptake in many bilingual places. Botswana, for example, which used to be British. So most kids there are bilingual. Puerto Rico is another region where Hedy is big in use. And you see, so there is not about ease of learning. It's much more that not everyone loves English, right? For cultural reasons. So people in Botswana, in Puerto Rico, or other places are sort of forced, if they teach programming, to do it in English. And that also teaches students that English is the language of technology. English is the language of the future, right? And this is maybe not a message that those teachers really feel, embrace. So for them, being able to teach programming in Spanish or in Setswana or in Arabic or in Chinese shows them, look, kids, our language is also the language of technology. We do not have to learn English. We can do stuff in our own way. And specifically in Botswana, we've done a really big experiment nationwide with 500 schools where half of the students did it in English and half of the students did the same course material in Setswana, which is their language. And then we saw that kids that were programming in Setswana built bigger programs, built more programs, and also showed a greater interest in a future career in programming. Not because of learning reasons, because they're all bilingual, but probably because of reasons like, oh, I'm excited about this. And there we didn't just change the language. We also worked together with local teachers to change the cultural context. So we have a restaurant example, for example, which for us is a McDonald's. But they're like, we don't have a McDonald's. We know it, of course, but it's not something we typically do with kids. So they made Botswana meatballs and all sorts of foods that would be much more recognizable to kids. And that is probably going to make a big difference in their enthusiasm. Because I see how this relates to me and my world.
Wow, it's just such a powerful message that you're delivering here. The figures speak for themselves, more than 500,000 monthly users from all around the world. It just really is inspiring. I'm curious, are there any success stories or feedback from parents and teachers from around the world that you get to hear about and that have used the platform to teach children programming skills? And what impacts have you seen on young learners yourself too?
Yeah, so absolutely. So we got a lot of emails. Maybe sometimes also, of course, we get emails about bugs. Hey, just the other day, we changed something to the teacher backend. It's like, hey, this one field has disappeared. We're like, oops, we overhauled some things. So we also get those types of emails, but we also really get enthusiastic emails from around the world. I remember this one email we got from Pakistan where a teacher said, I've been teaching programming to 16, 17-year-olds for a very long time. I used to do Python, but kids were struggling, and now we have switched from Python to Hedy. And he said, I've never seen more engagement in my classroom before we switched. There was so much more enthusiasm because of the stepwise system. It became so much more realistic for students to quickly make something. Like even in the first levels that we have, where you have not even variables. You don't have variables. You don't have loops. You don't have conditions. But you can create a story. You can create a drawing. You can create music with a song or with we have integration with Google Speech API, so you can have the stories read aloud. So you can make something that's very cool with very few programming concepts. And that really gets sort of hooked. Like, this is cool. Now I'm excited to learn more. So yeah, we do get these stories and pictures always. I always love it. We get pictures all around the world, classrooms that look on the one hand side exactly like mine, right? Like a classroom, but also the kids are different because they have different skin colors, they have different types of clothing, different types of artifacts, or you're like, oh, that is a classroom somewhere totally different, but they're also using my platform, which I also still use with my own 7th graders.
And as a professor and a high school teacher, what differences are you noticing between teaching programming to younger students versus maybe university level students? And has this helped shape your approach at Hedy too?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting question. So I do think like mostly the influence has been learning from the 7th grade, bringing that to university. Because the stereotype that we talked about before, that students in a computer science program want to learn programming. I think that was true when I was a student, that only computer nerds picked computer science, right? In the 90s, in the 2000s. But now there's a lot of students picking computer science, even in uni, because they think it's a good career, right? They used to go maybe into medicine or law, but now the vibe is computing is a good career. So that's why students go there. And then maybe they don't know programming, or they don't know if they like it. So I think a lot of this, the responsibility that you have with 7th graders to explain why this is fun and why this is useful, I think is also very much shapes my uni level teaching, in the sense that there I'm also more focusing on doing realistic data analysis and not some random text file with an exercise that doesn't make sense. And also in terms of motivation, I think that, like, if your teaching is not great at the university, the 18-year-olds don't understand anything, but they don't complain to you, right? They assume that you are explaining it well. They go to their dorm and they cry like, oh, this is so hard, I'll pick another major. But a 12-year-old that's confused and frustrated will tell you, right? They will say, I understand. Teacher, I understood nothing. It's like, nothing. Hey, can you name one thing that you remember from last week? I understood nothing, miss. Like, this is good feedback, even though it hurts. This is good feedback, right? This will help you to make the steps even smaller, and to also look at the students that indeed didn't understand anything last week. Those students also exist in university that are trying their best, but that have understood nothing of what you said. So the level of feedback is just also a 12-year-old. They're hard, right? They have no, in my country we would say they don't take any paper in front of the mouth, right? So they just know everything, which can be good, even though it also hurts.
Absolutely lovely. And I think another problem that the tech industry has at the moment is, if we're all serious about solving complex problems, we need diversity of thought. We need different ways of thinking. And we need to encourage more women into tech, particularly starting with girls, and also bringing people in from a diverse set of backgrounds as well. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you've seen in promoting programming education for children to bring in more people from different backgrounds? And how do you think we can overcome some of these barriers on a global scale?
Yeah, that's a great question. That is really also a hard question. But one of the things I've seen is that some programmers really like the fact that programming is hard, right? Yeah. Because they have learned it and it makes them smart that they can do it. So maybe they're not at the deepest level, not even buying into the notion that really programming is for everyone, right? So they like something like, let's say C or C++ is a good language because it's hard. You have to do your own memory management. This will toughen you up, right? This will make a man out of you, so to say. So if you want to make languages easier, which is one of the things that I've been doing with Hedy, but even if in a university context, you would argue, which I've also been present in many of those meetings, going from C to Python, then some people will reject because that will make it easier, and making it easier is not inherently a good thing, because we have this culture of masculinity and hard things, are good. So that, I think, is one of the biggest challenges, that we have to accept the fact that if we want to have more people in, we shouldn't stress how hard it is, or we should stress different things. Like programming is really hard, right? I still agree with that. We don't have to dumb it down. But the hard memory management isn't the hard part. That is hard, right? The hard part is the people part. Having the right requirements and doing maintenance and refactoring work, which is all people-y work. But people-y work is weak and easy. And the hard work is the machine work that we want to emphasize. So I think that cultural issue, and I don't have a solution, sadly, but that cultural issue is really something we need to address, that we need to realign what work do we value. And the work that we should value more, if we want to have more diversity, is the people-y work that now just isn't seen as work.
And a question I've got to ask, we've done so well getting this far into the podcast without mentioning AI, but because it's so hard, a lot of people are going to be leaning on Gen AI because it can be a hugely helpful tool for developers, but equally it could make them lazy and pick up bad habits, etc. Where do you stand on the usage of Gen AI right now, and from what you're seeing?
Oh, I mean, this is a whole other episode, man. There's so much to say about. So if you see AI like a spell checker in Word, if you have that type of AI in mind, I think that's actually good. And we programmers, we've been dealing with that for a long time, right? All our IDEs have built-in refactoring tools. We have in Python, you have optional typing, right? You have type hints like warning. This is probably not going to do what you expect it to do. Oh, here's an uncalled exception. So that level of AI actually, I think is good, and that prevents mistakes. But the level of AI that some people, of course, are promoting, that are saying, oh, build me a web app to do this, and then a sea of code rolls out. Like one person I really appreciate in this space is Grady Bush. He's one of the authors of UML, and he's very critical, I think, for good reasons about that level of AI use. He says, well, now you have some sort of dependency that next time you want this, you get the same code. So you should actually check in your prompt into version control, right? So you can go back. And who is going to maintain this legacy? So unless we get at a level that we are for machine code, right? Where, I know my compiler generates machine code and I never look at it. I trust the compiler. That level of abstraction is gone. Unless we are there, and we are not there, then you still have to deal with the code. You still have to deal with the security vulnerabilities that might be in there, that it generates code that you don't understand, and you are now the author, let alone all the other people in your team do not understand this. How are you going to change it? How are you going to do refactoring? What naming does the AI choose, right? Naming is one of the hardest problems in computer science. So now your AI is naming your variables for you. And in many cases, coming back to the localization, variable names are not in English. They might be in Dutch or Chinese in many code bases. So these are all issues. And then I haven't even talked about climate change, right? Always people like AI, climate change, right? My house is literally under sea level. Like I am speaking to you now from -5 meters in the sea.
Wow.
I do not want the climate impact of AI. Maybe for some things like early breast cancer detection. Okay, I can do 10 centimeters for that. Like I'm willing to pay for that with climate change. But do we really need AI to generate Java? Aren't there more efficient ways, if we want to generate Java, to do this from a specification that is precise, with a precise transformation algorithm, or from natural language with more precise translation algorithms? We have already, as software engineering research, worked on a lot of technologies actually to do code generation in more efficient and precise and traceable ways. So is AI really here the solution, or is it maybe just a little bit of Silicon Valley hype coming from people that are set to make money from this?
So again, so many powerful points there. And I think, as you said, it's a whole other episode that we could talk about. And I think maybe
yeah, for sure.
We might have to get you back on next year to discuss some of those things as it continues to evolve, because we don't talk about some of the points you made there enough, in my opinion. And we will also have a lot of business leaders listening that are also parents who might not have a background in technology, but they want to support their children to learning code and programming, etc. So any advice that you would give them that to anyone that doesn't have that technical background, but they want to encourage and support their kids? Any advice there?
Yeah, so I would definitely say check out Hedy, our platform. It is free. You can also make a free teacher account, which is also open to parents. We don't check if you're a real teacher. You can be parent, and so you can learn along with your kids. And it is really an accessible platform. So it really starts with, hey, we're simply going to print your name. It has a built-in lesson plan. So you don't have to figure out how to teach it. You can just say to the kids, here are the lessons, you can read them. We take them through the system in all those different translated languages. So if you do want to encourage your kids to start programming, then this might be something to check out, where we have all those different modalities that I talked about before. Is your kid into drawing? We're going to make a drawing. Is your kid into music? We're going to make songs. Is your kid into storytelling? We're going to make interactive stories. These are things like, for most kids, one of those three things will be something that they're already somewhat interested in. And probably for parents also, they are interested in stories. They do read books with their kids, or music, or drawing. So that is also a space where you can connect with your kids, because if they draw something cool, then you immediately also understand the results, which is what I'm seeing sometimes with other platforms that, for example, allow kids to create games. Then it's harder for parents, and sometimes also for teachers, by the way, to really be sort of impressed or enthusiastic about what the kids created. I just talked with a computer science teacher the other day, and he said, yeah, all the kids want to create a cookie clicker. This is a type of game that maybe some parents are familiar with. The game is you have to click the cookie very quickly, and then you get points. And then with those points, you can buy an auto clicker that then clicks the cookie quicker, and then you make more money. It's teaching them capitalism. So teachers and parents, they don't really love cookie clickers, right? We don't like, oh, you built this cool game that has no goal. So if you have a modality that's a little bit more resonated with all people like me, then that is also going to encourage the enthusiasm. And we know that that is such a big driver for kids' interest, specifically also girls' interest, that if your parents think what you're doing is cool or valuable, then you're like, this is cool. Like, not if they're older teenagers, but younger kids, if you create something like, look, mom, I made this digital drawing for you, then if the parent is impressed, then that makes a big difference. So that is something that, check out our platform. It's entirely free. It's also open source. So if there's people that are programmers that are listening, like, oh, this sounds like a cool open source project I would work on, please also, we are on GitHub. We have a Discord where you can connect with the team. So if you want to contribute and also use it for your kids, you're very welcome. We have like 100 open issues.
Wow, I can hear light bulb moments going off around the world, and I would urge any parent listening to at least give it a try. See if you can get your kids engaged with this technology. It really is a great opportunity. And as we look further ahead, how do you see the future of programming education in particular evolving, particularly with the next generation of computing technologies almost waiting on the horizon? I won't take you down the quantum rabbit hole today, but how do you see it all evolving?
Yeah, so I think in this new world, some thought leaders are also saying, even thought leaders from like the computing space, oh, I know programming is not necessary anymore because of AI or because of whatever reasons. But I think it's now with more computing, it's even more important for everyone, for all kids and adults, but specifically also for kids, to have some sort of understanding of what computers can do and also still what they cannot do. So I hope that this AI hype is going to power and not take away the need or the publicly seen need from adults that kids learn programming. Because if a system magically can create an essay for you, how does that work? And when do you want to use it? And when do you not want to use it? I had my older high schoolers a few years ago build their own tiny ChatGPT that trained on their own emails. Of course, we use some libraries, but in the basis, they built their own GPT and it could sort of spew out their own emails. And that was a very, very useful lesson to them. Because they were like, hey, all my emails are still on the internet. I don't talk like this anymore. I would like to remove this data. Like, you learned a valuable lesson. That wasn't even the lesson I was trying to teach you, but yay, that is also a lesson. But also I showed them that just with a little bit of Python, you can create something that, creates like reasonable sounding sentences that have no meaning, that aren't really doing anything. So I think there's I would like all adults in the world to have to try this, so to see how easy it is to build something that creates reasonably sounding, but ultimately senseless sentences.
And as a professor of computer science education, high school computer science teacher, and behind the hugely successful Hedy, there's a huge pressure on us all to be in a state of continuous learning. But as someone with so much experience and being so far ahead there, I've got to ask, how or where do you self-educate? How do you keep up to speed in this fast-moving world of technological change? Any tips you can offer on how you self-educate there?
Yeah, definitely. So this is going to be sounding a little bit like a Luddite, but I really prefer reading books. Ideally paper books or on an ebook reader. I have recently, not even very long ago, like a few months ago, deleted all apps from my phone that I don't need. So no more browser, not scrolling on Facebook or other socials. I really try to be very deliberate about my media diet. I have a few newsletters that I subscribe to that I read on my phone, and otherwise books. And I think not even technology books. When I was younger, I was really like, I want to learn Rust and Dart. I want to learn all these programming languages that to stay up to date. And as I age, I know I sound like an old person now, I think there's actually more sense in reading philosophy books or reading history books, right? Because a lot of this has happened before. I recently read a book that I really, really liked. It's called Blood in the Machine, and it's about resistance, sometimes violence resistance against industrialization in the 18 and 1900s. And if you read that book, you learn so much more about AI than by reading books that have appeared the last 5 or 10 years about AI, because it really describes also the social impact and the changes in people's lives and their relationship with work and their relationship with technology. So recently I've really picked up an interest in reading books that have these broad views on society and technology rather than just this is the hype of the day. Because, after 2 years, then there's another hype. So that's sort of my tip.
Yeah, fantastic advice. I echo everything you said there. I too, the older I get, I start to realise that everything happens in cycles, and we've kind of been here again and again and again.
Yes, I have this lecture that I give also about AI in education, and then I have people guess when a learning machine was first talked about in Dutch newspapers that you can all crawl with a nice little Python script. And the answer there is 1889. Wow. And this was a machine that was supposedly used to teach biking to kids so that you don't have to teach them biking anymore. 1898. And of course, 120 years later, we still teach our children to bike, because teaching your kid to bike it's such a bonding moment, right? This is such a special once or twice in a lifetime event. Of course, we're going to outsource that to a machine. That is wicked. And I have this old newspaper, and then people are like, people have thought about this before a long time ago. That's a nice eye-opener.
And I think that's a perfect moment to end on. But before I let you go, I'm hoping we've inspired a lot of people listening around the world today. So where is the best place for listeners to find you, your team online, and find out more information about Hedy, or indeed anything we talked about today? Where would you like to point them?
Yes. So if you go to hedy.org, you can start programming right away. So if you want to go there with your kid, that is the easiest way. If you're interested in maybe joining our team as a translator or a teacher or a programming, the best URL is very easy. It is hedy.org/join, where those 3 categories have their own page to get started straight away.
Well, I'll add links to everything so people can find that nice and easily. And just love chatting with you today about why we need to radically transform how we teach kids programming languages to prepare them for the next wave of computing, and the role of natural languages and culture, and the role that is playing in forging the future of programming. So many great messages in there, and also how every parent can encourage a child to learn coding skills. It's no stone left unturned. I'd love to see how people get on using the platform. I encourage everyone to feedback to me as well. But more than anything, just thank you for bringing this topic to life today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been great.
So what can we take from our conversation today? For me, I think at its core, Hedy is more than just a platform. It's a testament to the power of innovative education in opening doors for young minds everywhere. And today we explored how programming in native languages can enhance learning, the importance of culturally relevant teaching, and that pressing need to rethink traditional programming education. And I think my guest journey just underscores that critical role that educators, parents and technologists collectively play in preparing the next generation for a future where coding is as fundamental as reading or math. And as you personally reflect on our discussion today, consider how you might support or encourage a child's journey into the world of programming. What small steps can you take to make that learning experience not just accessible, but truly engaging and meaningful? Well, a big thank you for joining me today on this exploration into the future of programming education, and I hope you're inspired and you will play a part in shaping it. Remember, you can email me, techblogwriter@outlook.com. Connect with me on LinkedIn, just @NeilC.Hughes. Love to hear your thoughts on this. But I have taken far too much of your time up already today, so I'm going to prepare for tomorrow's guest, and hopefully I look forward to speaking with you all again tomorrow morning. Bye for now.